Hepiniz tekrar hoş geldiniz. Mart ayının son oturumu şimdi İngilizce olarak devam edecek. O yüzden aşağıdan dil seçeneklerinden Türkçe dinlemek istiyorsanız dil değiştirmeyi unutmayın. Oturumun sonunda da Cevher Hanım kapanış konuşmasını yapacak. Welcome everyone. This is our last panel for Indieway March, and now I'm inviting in a few moments, Studio X Labs audio director Paul Ruskay will talk about in the title Lumote and how audio was used to drive animation, particles, and lighting for this 3D platformer puzzle. So I'm inviting him to join us right now. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome again. You can start when you're ready.
Oh, sure. Okay. Okay. So I guess I'll share my screen. So I guess everyone can see that.
Yes, we can see it.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks for coming to my talk on our indie title, Lumote: The Mastermote Chronicles, which is actually being released on Switch, Xbox, PlayStation 4, and PC next month on April 21st. I think it's the 21st, whenever PAX is. PAX East in America, that's where we're going to be launching our title. A little bit about myself and the studio. I've been doing game audio for quite a while. I got my start in the industry in '94, and I started at a games company called Radical Entertainment, and stayed with them for 4.5 years. And then in 1999, I started Studio X Labs, which catered specifically to doing game audio, and have been working here since. We do at the studio, we work on a range of projects. We do sound design, there's music production, also dialogue recording, and we have a range of projects from indie projects up to AAA. Just as an introduction to some of our work, I was going to play a couple trailers that we did all the audio for, just to give you a sense of what we work on here. So here's we were working with Gearbox on the Godfall campaign, and here's one of the trailers or the audio we produced for this trailer.
Each valor plate reflects a god. Through storm and furious battle, its powers will be yours. Ascend, lion-hearted, with Silvermane.
And here I'll play another one. Here's another trailer that was done with Gearbox as well for Risk of Rain. Yeah, so what's kind of nice about having a studio that does a lot of different things is you know, you basically have to be able to um, you know, be able to be comfortable within the game engine and be able to integrate and, you know, work with audio programmers, but you also have to do you know, there's trailers, there's voice recording, and you know, all of these things were totally useful when we were working on our indie title, Lumote. And I'll play the trailer for Lumote and then launch into the PowerPoint. This will give you a sense of what the game looks like, what the game sounds like, and then I can jump into like how I actually approach the audio for it. So the team, we actually got a publisher about a year ago. They're called Wired in the UK, and they've come on board to help with the console releases, which has been really great because there's only 4 of us on the team. But you know, without a publisher, we really couldn't be ready to release the way we are now. So here, I'll just play you the Lumote trailer and then jump into the PowerPoint.
Quiet.
So as you can see from the you know, from that trailer, you know, Lumote is a very colorful, bright platform puzzler. And here, let me. Yeah, and one of the things that we discovered, because we were such a small team, was we basically had one game designer who also coded. We had a graphics coder, Kyle, who did all the art. He's also a programmer, and I was responsible for all the asset development and also integration. The other thing about the project that was interesting was Kyle and Arn. Here, I think I have a picture of the team here. Yeah, so there was just 4 of us that built it. One of the things that was kind of cool was Kyle and Arn wrote the engine that we did the game in. So it was a totally custom engine, and that was great because they really were able to push the visual style in really unique and interesting ways, because both Kyle and Arn you know, have worked on a lot of like AAA stuff, and they're bringing a lot of that knowledge to this game. But one of the things that we discovered was, because there was only 4 of us, we didn't have any animators on the project. So what we ended up with was the idea that we could, by using Wwise, we could drive a lot of the animation and visual effects in the game by using the sound design to drive particles, lighting, and mesh animation. So that really was kind of a breakthrough, because I had, usually when you're doing audio for games, you're going to get a visual, and you're going to have to put sound on it afterwards. But in this case, when I was developing all of the sound design, we added this other thread where the actual audio I was creating was generating the visual effects that you were seeing, on the creatures, and also some of the effects that happen in the world. So one of the things that, before we jump into like actually looking at how that was done, I'll just kind of go over what the game is and what the intention behind the audio was. It's a very bright and vibrant world. The sound was meant to be organic, but also electronic. There's kind of an underwater theme, so that we wanted it to be really dreamy and have the sound to be reinforcing that idea that it's a kind of an aquatic environment. All of the creatures in the world, they all communicate basically through their voices are generated from samples of musical instruments like flutes and synths. The music, because it's a platform puzzler, the music was inspired by nature documentaries, and there was an internet radio station called Drone Zone, which was a really neat kind of station that had these really neat ambient kind of music to it. So I was referencing that as the reference for the soundtrack. And the other interesting thing about the game is that we have a non-verbal narrative. So there's actually no spoken words in the game, and audio would have to play a huge role in terms of communicating the emotional state that Lumote is in, and how Lumote is reacting to the world would all have to come through little voice responses, which they weren't words, but they were basically nonverbal vocal responses for the main character. I'll play this. This was an early incarnation of the game before it took on its final form. Lumo basically started out as a square cube before becoming that cute squishy character. So this is Michelle describing some of the early stages of the game, and you'll kind of see what the game looked like before it took on its final form.
Hi, I'm Michelle Rocha, co-founder of Luminosum Games, and I will be demoing our game Lumote for you. This is a 3D puzzle platforming game where you play as a glowing cube Lumote, pushing through the darkness. Jump to expand your light radius and illuminate the world. And you can stop to expand it even further. Or use your light to resonate on and activate objects, for example, this door. Once you stop resonating, though, it loses power, so you'll have to find another way to keep it open. Let's explore. This creature is a dumb bat. He's kind of your buddy throughout the game. You can possess him to either get up to high places or use his ability, which is to act as a resonator to keep things like the switch at the bottom powered. Lumo can only jump and resonate, so you must instead use the creatures of the world and their abilities to navigate and solve puzzles. I will now activate this dumb bat. All the creatures have different abilities that you can use when you're possessing them, but not all of them are as nice as the dumb bat. One of the key components of Lumote is exploring the darkness. The flickering checkpoints act as beacons guiding you in the right direction. As you explore the space, You will get a better understanding of the terrain and the creatures that can harm and help you, like these guards that will knock you back if you get in their way. Or can be used as a handy way to get around. As you can see, they stay on the light wires, so being observant is key. Light wires are more than just paths for guards, though. They are conductors for your light, powering objects and illuminating the paths ahead as well as behind. We'll need a dumb bat again to keep this switch powered, so let's go find him. Here he is. Now here's the problem. Dumb bats can't jump, so we'll need to find another way to get him to the top. This guard is perfectly in place for us to catch a ride. But there's still no way for us to get to the very top. This is where possession comes in. Notice there are other light wires connected to this guard's path, but the guard never takes them. Instead of riding him to the top, we'll take control and change his path. Now he's in place for us to grab a ride with the dumb bat. And there we go. I hope this has been an illuminating video on our game Lumo. If there are any questions, please drop us a line, lumo@luminawesome.com.
So you can kind of see like that was a very old demo. That's from almost like 3 years ago. And that was before there was a direction change in the art direction to get more sort of the creatures more organic, like soft body physics used for the animation. So there was quite a lot of and also the look and the feel of the game changed. They went away from exploring in the dark and went to a more lighted environment where you can, which makes it a lot easier to solve the puzzles. So they went away from, exploring in the dark to more focus on using the motes and the creatures in the world to solve those problems, to solve the puzzles. The basic setup was actually pretty easy in terms of the audio events. For the creatures or the motes, they had very simple audio event cycles that they would go through. So if you approached one of the creatures sitting by themselves, they have an idle state. When you approach the creature, it'll say hello when you get within a certain proximity, and then if you leave that proximity, they say goodbye. There was like idle, hello, possession, start. The other thing about the game is that it's a game based on 2 energy states. So the world is either blue or red, and your job as Lumote is to turn all of the red areas into blue areas. So part of the way of doing that is changing the power that is on the creatures. So at the start of the game, all the creatures in the world are red, and as you navigate the world, you can change their energy state to be able to help solve the problem of the puzzle. So, and then for Lumote, he didn't have that many events either. There was like walk, jump, double jump, a land, which was controlled by a real-time parameter control, which would, if Lumote fell from a certain height, if it was short, he'd have one kind of vocal response, but if it was like a larger distance, then he would have a more exaggerated response. There's possession start, possession end, and then the reaction, hello, the Lumote's reaction to the hello that the creature says to him. So if Lumote walks up to a creature that's blue, then Lumote has a positive reaction, but if he walks up to a creature that is red, then Lumote will respond in a negative reaction, like fear. So much of the world's personality comes from these really simple audio event loops. And because we didn't have a lot of events in the game, then the stuff that was triggering had to be like meaningful for the player and allow the player to understand the world through Lumote's reactions to the world. So in terms of setting up Wwise, because we had such a small team, Kyle was able to, basically using the switch containers in Wwise, we were able to create switches for all of the modes and all of the behavior of those modes. So by setting up a generic switch-based event structure in Wwise, we basically were able to set up all of the audio triggers for all of the creatures in the world and their responses, just using one audio event, and then allowing the switch from the world object. So if you have a creature, it'll pass a switch handle over to Wwise saying, I'm this particular type of creature. So really, by setting it up this way, it gave me maximum flexibility to be able to assign any event within those simple parameters to any of the creatures that were in the world. And we did this primarily because being a team of 4, everyone had to be super independent with their part of the project. So I really didn't get much programming support after we set up this structure. And that's basically how we approached the integration side in terms of how the graphics engine was passing game state information to Wwise. So the goal was to create a development environment that gave me maximum control over all of the game audio with minimum programming support. We started out with a paper design of the sound design to figure out what assets we were going to need, for each of the creatures. And then we broke down all of the audio events by category based on the switch groups. So we had a switch group for all the modes, we had a switch group for all the behaviors, and then getting to the point of the talk, which is how we used audio to drive the animation. We did that by basically there is a query. You can kind of see it on the screen here, the AKA sound engine query get RTPC value to read back the metering parameter from Wwise. So what that means is in Wwise, every sound that you have is going to be going out a sub bus or a metering bus. So what we actually did was, what we actually did was, you can kind of see it here on the screen. It's basically a plugin called Wwise Meter, and what Kyle did was set up a number of templates in terms of how the audio was going to be driven to certain visual effects in the game. So you'll see here in this drop-down menu, we have output meter voice, lightwire master, output meter, lightwire Lumote. So this is the red, the Lumote is the blue. Output meter voice was for any speech that was coming out of any of the creatures. And we also had plugins for the music, so that we could drive some of the music to affect the visuals as well. Here, let me go back. I'm trying to go back here. Oops, sorry. Let me try that again. Yeah. So actually, when I started working with audio in terms of how it was going to drive the visuals, I kind of realized that the actual shape of the audio file would create certain visual patterns in the game, and there was only 4 categories of audio in terms of how it could be used in the environment. So a sound that was a constant signal would basically be more or less like an on-off type situation. So if you applied a constant signal, audio signal, to particles, then you would get a constant stream of particles coming from that world object. If you had a constant pulse, like a kick drum or just something that has a pulse to it, if we applied that to particles, then you would get poofs of particles based on the pulse that was coming from the audio. And then the other one was random pulse. So I can demonstrate this. So I put together a little video here. This isn't the actual sound in the game, but it'll demonstrate how the audio was actually working within the game. So for this example, I've just taken some speech samples. This is for random pulse to demonstrate what random pulse looks like. And speech, it's a good example of random pulse because, you know, as you talk, the volume of your voice and the waveforms that are being generated from the voice create like organic patterns. So what you'll see here is that the voice on this Lumo, or sorry, the voice on this Dumbat is tied to particles, lighting, and mesh animation. And also you'll see that Lumote will jump on this mote and change color so that you'll see that energy state, once it's switched, it'll switch to a different voice. So that was actually one of the problems of one of the issues with designing for Lumote was that I had to design the game twice effectively because there was red energy and blue energy, and the creatures could manifest blue or red. So depending on what energy state they were in, they would have basically a different sound design. So I'll play you this. So this is an example of random pulse using dialogue to drive the animation on this mode.
This body has used up all its strength now. Whatever. I can lend this sword to you. Take advantage of this opportunity and use it as you wish.
So I'm going to switch it to blue. So that's the possession.
We really got into trouble. Anyway, let's put a stop to the Dark Prince quickly. If we don't move fast enough, those demons will revive.
So it actually turned out to be like a really powerful tool that we could use to get procedural animation. The nice thing about it was that because the visuals were being driven by the audio, it gave it this really organic and tight animation feel to it. I'll move on to the next example, which is constant pulse. So this is so what I've done here, same example, but what I've done is put a drum kit sound so that you can kind of see what a constant pulse does for the animation on this drum bat. So one of the neat things, so in this example with constant pulse, the drum kit, it's the same drum kit for the red state as the blue state, but what I wanted to demonstrate, which was kind of neat about Wwise, was that for this blue state, I put delay and echo plugin, like effect plugins in Wwise, and then how that effect is working with that drum beat, that actually gets translated visually. So what was kind of neat about working this way was, you know, like delay, reverb, and echo, you could actually feed the way that the audio was being processed through these effects and then run that signal into the game engine so that you could get really interesting visual patterns from processing the audio, you know, with the onboard effects of Wwise. So as I mentioned before, every creature in the world would have you know, its own particular voice, but that voice had to be created to actually sound correct, but also look correct. So that was a lot of time in development in terms of finding the voice for each of the creatures in the world and how they were going to respond to Lumote and how Lumote was going to respond to those creatures. So what I found working with the metering plugin was we could use the metering plugin to reinforce the mote state. So if it was idle, it would just be like kind of a mellow kind of animation. But if Lumote walked up to it and the creature was surprised or the creature said hello, then we could have a bit more of a percussive response, which gave it a more animated visual effect. So it really created a very organic movement, which really worked with the whole theme of the game. The other part was focusing on mote sound design to give a sense of a complete organic creature. So for the small blue mote, I used a flute-like sample designed specifically to be played random in sequence. So using like a flute to create impact sounds, movement sounds, possession sounds, idle, wake, and goodbye. So all of those had to be done twice with using different instruments depending on whether the mote was in the blue state or the red state. The other thing was adding audio effects onto the mote subfolders allowed to get really, you know, sort of really interesting kind of visual effects, but also really interesting audio effects. And then the last one was it reinforced creating organic, convincing interactions between Lumote and the mote. So the priority was to make each of the motes react in a very distinct way to to Lumote as he went through solving the puzzles. So this is just some captured gameplay, and you'll kind of see how all of this kind of plays together. So from a very simple set of audio events, we can get really complex audio soundscapes happening just by Lumote navigating the world and how the creatures react to him. So I'll play this, and you'll kind of see all of the audio in play. So you can kind of see there that like a small amount of events can actually create a really interesting soundscape. And then when you add the other layer of the visuals driving all of the animation on the creatures, it gives it a really nice, interesting, organic feel. Oh yeah, so this is I think we captured this one. The other thing that we did was we used audio to drive camera shake during one of the sequences. So here, I'll play this and then explain what's going on here. So so what we're getting here is actually this is this is old footage, so this doesn't actually have the camera shake in it, but we added that later. So what you'll see is all the light wires in the world are being driven by the master mode. So these tower sequences happen a number of times during the game because you basically unlock these towers which turn a section of the map to blue. So that's sort of the completion of a stage. So you'll see the master moat at the bottom of the map, and his voice is driving all of the lighting in all of these light wires that you're seeing. And the other nice thing about Lumote is there's no loading screens. There's no loading screens in the game. The entire game is one continuous experience. So when you start the game, you can look down to the bottom of the map and see what is left to do by what's red. And any of the areas that are blue are the puzzles that you've solved, and is a record of like how much progress you've made in the map, which is really kind of nice, because the whole experience is you're never taken out of the environment. There's never a break in the audio. When you're in the game environment, you see everything that you can play within the game. So to summarize, this was an indie title. Like I've worked on much larger and better staffed projects, but I think there was like a real value to bringing that kind of AAA type production to an indie title. And one of the things in terms of developing the overall look and feel of it was constantly polishing the concept of what we were trying to achieve, and not getting too hung up on any particular specific sound design asset, because it developed over time. Like I showed you the earlier version of it, which was basically just a square cube, transformed into a very fluid and organic type presentation. So I was constantly refining and polishing the way that the moment by moment interactivity was happening between the characters, so that there wasn't too much audio happening, but there was enough that these creatures and Lumote in the world, they felt like they were real and they were alive, and they were reacting to the events in the game in a very natural kind of feel. The other thing was like being open to crazy ideas and always pursuing what makes the experience more enjoyable and memorable for the player. So like with those tower sequences, it wasn't in that clip, but we realized that moving that large dumbat into its place, there wasn't a whole lot of gameplay going on there. So we were like, oh well, why don't we just have the master mode voice that's driving the light wires? Why don't we have that drive the camera shake as well? And the final sort of experience of that is a lot more dramatic, just by kind of thinking laterally and going like, oh, what else can we use audio for in terms of driving visuals in the game? Paper designing, your event layer was very useful, because it allowed us to create a create an approach that allowed us to hook up all of the required events in the game using the switch function within Wwise, and that gave me a lot of independence from Kyle, because he was busy enough programming and creating the art for the game. So that was actually really important, because once we had the paper design in place, you know, Kyle could go in, add all the events, and we figured out a very optimized approach in terms of the event handling from the game engine to Wwise. The other point is, you know, when I was developing this, I wanted myself to be entertained by the experience, and I was always, you know, pushing the sound design to make it more interesting, to make the creatures more cute, to make them respond in interesting ways that would not get boring, not get repetitious, and allow people to get more immersed, you know, within the environment. And then the other summary point was finding out what the goals of the other discipline, like coding, art, and design, and by figuring out what they were trying to achieve, we were able to use audio to leverage you know, what they were trying to achieve, which was you know, really cute creatures that had soft body physics and looked really organic and aquatic, and you know, by discussing what they were trying to achieve, we were able to leverage existing tech, you know, in terms of driving the visuals of the game. Yeah, so that's sort of the PowerPoint presentation. I guess we have some minutes, so I could answer some questions if anyone has any.
Thanks a lot, Paul, for your presentation. We don't have any questions yet. Please, if you have any questions, use the Q&A menu to ask Paul about anything. We can just wait 1-2 minutes, and if you want to add anything else, you can while we wait.
Oh, sure, okay. Yeah, I mean, I had some other, I could play you some other stuff I was going to play. I thought I was going to run out of room, but this isn't related to Lumote, but this is like kind of a behind the scenes of some of the voice recording process, not for Lumote, but for another game that we did. So maybe I can play this, just might be interesting to see, for people to see, like how we do the voice recording at the studio.
Yeah, sure.
So this is a game that we did. We did all the English voice recording. The developer is a Polish developer, and we did we shot all of the actors coming through just as a sort of like a travel log of like how we did the speech for the game.
I must admit that we weren't entirely convinced whether we should take part in that murder, but the offer was just too tempting. The aristocrats will proudly return to the city any day now, and every person who has not taken our side will be dealt with. You won. We will keep our promise, and you will get that traitor's head. And Paris, well, Paris will not be too happy.
People, traitors, they are yelling that they have had enough of the terror of the revolution. Some say they want bread,
others that the clergy continues to oppress the people. And I need you to get rid of the undesirable, the element that undermines the sense of the revolution. Fear will help them think more rationally, to believe in its message. You must bring peace to the capital city, even if that means blood.
Now is the only real choice you will ever make. To die and never feel anything again, or to really feel what being a true hero is like. I need a hero, not a judge. People want to be heroes. Fight for their lives. Fight for Paris.
Do you remember when someone stabbed you in the middle of the street and I stitched you up? Did I still not help you enough? Why the hell have I been kidnapped and tied to a chair? There are many whores in Paris willing to play that game with you. So, Judge, will you answer me?
The man who was forbidden to shoot. Commander Burrell paid the highest price for our decisions. And what have people done with that freedom? Acted like a cheap harlot paid with diamonds. A harlot who tells you that everything will be all right if you drown your morality in someone else's blood.
You disowned me, as God disowned Cain. Father abandoned his own son, and you did not even try to defend me. Why do you grieve for him? He was nothing. I am better than he was. People will follow in my footsteps.
Yeah, so that's a little behind the scenes of some voice recording projects that we've done here.
Yeah, and we have a question.
Okay.
When you decide to voice the main characters in the games, what is the most challenging process for you?
It was actually trying to find a voice that was. It was funny because we ended up for Lumote, it's a female voice, but we wanted it to be cartoony, and we auditioned probably about 10 actresses, you know, doing various versions of cartoony, and you know, we eventually ended up with an actress that just had the right amount of cute quality in her voice. So the like once we had her selected, you know, the challenge was, once we had the voice that we liked, the challenge was creating a vocal script that was going to be able to communicate, you know, every response in the game, you know, in a convincing way with these little tiny cute voice responses. So the challenge there was, you know, coming up with a complete category of every response that Lumote could have in the game, and then getting those performances so that it sounded like this creature's voice. Like it sounded like the creature would respond this way, or, you know, when Lumote falls a small distance, he makes sort of a smaller sound, and a larger distance, there's more of a you know, more of an exaggerated vocal sound. So the real challenge was like getting an actress that fit the part, but then getting a non-verbal script that would be able to communicate Lumote's emotional state in a way that felt natural, and you know, sort of just merged with the look of the character.
Thanks a lot, Paul, for joining us today. Thanks a lot for
Yeah.
your presentation.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We'll continue with Ms. Jawhar's closing speech now, and thank you again.
Thanks much. Ciao.